So, welcome, Lewis, to the Digital Noir Presents live at SouthStart podcast. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here.
No problem. How'd the talk go?
Yeah, it was good. I think I had an itch to scratch for a while. There are a couple of things that I've kind of learned along this startup journey that I wanted to share. So
Okay.
it feels good to have scratched that itch, you know.
What's one of the itches that you've been scratching?
In this kind of startup game, a very high stakes startup game, we do a crazy electric car, and it's a monumental challenge. And at times that challenge was brutal, right? Brutal. Like, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, to be honest. But I'm very glad I did it. And now looking back, kind of able to learn a few things. Primarily how there's different roles that people play. If they're a linear thinking person or a lateral thinking person,
Okay.
or if they're the entrepreneur with this kind of quantum thinking universe. It's not a question of human capability or a ranking of how smart people are. It's just the different roles that they got to play. And the people playing those different roles really never get along. But I think having an understanding of the different roles helps us to be a little more empathetic, and I think ultimately be a little more healthy as entrepreneurs and create healthy organizations.
And so running a company. So did you start Uniti or you?
Yeah.
Right. So when you're putting together teams like that, how do you go about gelling people that think in different ways and may not think along similar lines, but you obviously need them in the larger makeup, right?
Yeah, I mean, it gets even more complex when you think about how the organization needs to change over time. In Uniti, the whole idea was to be really creativity heavy, but process light, management light.
Sure.
It means you can really define a unique product, design a unique product, a unique way to hit the market, and be really creativity heavy in that approach. But then all of a sudden it comes time to industrialize that thing and build a lot of them, and that requires a very different team. And having to change that structure and evolve the organization and try to keep people happy, that is really taxing. I think that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life,
Okay.
to sort of restructure and, remove 20 engineers from the team and stuff like that. That was really brutal. I think the number one most important thing to do is, under all circumstances, just be happy and healthy and grateful and feel good, and no matter what, put that vibe out into the organization and, share information, be absolutely transparent with everything, and then you get it back. Then you get empathy and understanding back. And that's the best way, I think, for the organization to work out. Not the American way, fire everybody, not that kind of stuff. That doesn't work.
One of the things that I suppose SouthStart's trying to champion, I think, and here in SA, and I'm interested in your opinion of sort of South Australia from an outsider, but is opening up those, being transparent, having actual real communication in the industry, in the startup industry, in the business industry. And I think that historically there's this sort of proprietary, keep everything behind closed doors in SA,
Sure.
and that's why a lot of things don't bubble to the surface.
It's like that globally.
Yeah.
It's a generational thing.
Yeah, I think so.
And if you're in the next generation of startups or entrepreneurs or whatever, the first thing you look at is, well, the big industry's got all the money and they got all this and they got all that. What do I have? What are the unique resources that I got as an entrepreneur? Well, that's one of them. Being open and transparent and speaking to a lot of people and banding people together, creating a grassroots movement with a lot more agility, flexibility. You'd be surprised. Don't underestimate the power of those advantages.
And what do you think, because I think especially in SA and Australia, there's often been this reliance on government, right? And I don't necessarily see why. Obviously, they play their part, but on a grassroots level, what are the kind of things that you think, a city like Adelaide can start doing to, try and push ourselves to that position where I think a lot of us see SA can go, and being sort of, a global leader and a place where people come to innovate as opposed to leading like a lot of us do?
Look, one thing I got to say, since I've been here and been engaging with SA, I don't know if you're the best place in Australia or the best place in the world for innovation. I don't know if you're the best place to go for startups, but it certainly seems that way. You really punch above your weight. It's incredible. I mean, in terms of autonomous electric mobility, you got all four of them here. The autonomous shuttle pods. I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking this was the next I don't know, Silicon Valley or Sydney or something like that. I don't know. I mean, reliance on the government. I mean, since when does the government have a chief entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Chief entrepreneur's office. Honestly, I think you're all heading in the right direction, and events like SouthStart are absolutely perfect for that. You've got people bringing in different kinds of thinking, warping reality a little bit, constructing the reality. I think culturally and in the people, you certainly have everything you need culturally. You certainly have an economy and a social environment that definitely supports a great startup era to explode. But I think events like SouthStart, making them as rock and roll as possible, getting people together, getting people fired up, put on a show, get people excited, podcasts like this, I think they're absolutely critical, economically critical. They're absolutely critical. So be louder and do more of it.
And I think it's getting people together and making them realize it's great. We can, if we all get together and actually make noise, then people are going to hear it. And it's obviously it's simple to say, but I think people just need to actually get out and do it more, right?
Yeah, but talk about indicators. Here's an interesting data point. I was at Prohibition Gin the other day and tried some gin. It was absolutely wonderful. And I said, explain what your story here. And he said, well, we're 3 years old. He said we're kind of new in the gin space, but we're old in the Adelaide gin space.
Yeah.
Because back then I think there was like 3, and
now
there's
they're one of the forerunners. Yeah.
Yeah, and now there's like freaking 200 of them or something. It's crazy. That's a gold rush.
Yeah.
Right. There was this wine thing. Now that all of a sudden there's this gin thing. I mean, it's great timing in a global context. So if that's an indicator for anything else, it's an indicator that other people are watching and saying, hang on a minute, that looks like a lot of fun. I like gin. Let me have a shot at it.
Jump in and have a crack.
By the time that's a real indicator that there's a lot of people looking and a lot of people with a little itch to scratch, and watch that spread to many other industries.
Yeah, craft beer as well. And I really, because it's close to my heart, but I love that the food and wine scene in SA, because it is so great. Gets woven into everything we do, right? But why not?
Please, the food and wine scene. I had dinner at Concubine the other night, and I had a prawn that was like a lobster. You are spoiled. You are spoiled. I mean, you can't get a prawn like that in Europe. By the time shrimp get that far, they're little rubbery frozen things. You can't get that in Thailand.
No, you can't.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So, sure.
Yeah.
Use your strengths. Yeah.
How long have you been in Adelaide for on this trip?
A couple of days. Got here on the 18th, I think. Going to be here till the 26th.
Nice.
So, I mean, the SouthStart squad has been incredible, like hosting and taking to events.
Yeah, Africola last night at the dinner.
Yeah.
How'd you find that?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was unique. It was different.
Yeah.
So that was great. Normally, I don't have time to be involved in all the events. I just go, walk on stage, and then leave again. Especially if it's in Europe, I'm just buzzing around. But for some reason, this time I took a couple extra days, take some meetings and so forth. I was blown away. Very, very well hosted, well managed event.
Nice. So you're from Australia originally, but you've moved overseas?
Yeah. I lived all around Western Australia and Queensland.
Okay.
So went to university at Griffith on the Gold Coast.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of us that do, head overseas, head to Europe, head to the States, and then come back and go, wow. I mean, you sort of neglect how good things are, especially in Adelaide, which does get sort of left behind some of the bigger cities sometimes. But I think more people coming in and starting these conversations and kicking things off. It's exciting.
Sure. I mean, I always thought of coming back maybe one day in the distant future, but this startup scene thing wasn't happening back then.
No, not at all.
This is a relatively new thing. I mean, God's sake, we didn't even have internet that could handle it. Still, it's really lagging behind, but we're getting there.
What are some of the things, as an outsider now looking back in, that you think need to be improved, I suppose, to sort of come up to a level of what's happening in Europe or other states?
I mean, I'd love to see a lot more big thinking. I think there's a lot of focus on attracting foreign companies and all that kind of stuff, and that's really great. But I'd like to see a lot more big thinking in young people. I mean, I don't know how it is today, but when I was at university, everybody was hanging out and getting drunk and just trying to pass. That was never my thing. I think we're a little bit too comfortable sometimes.
Yep.
I don't know what it's like now, but as a university student, you should be making a new startup every year and making a horrific, embarrassing failure every single time, so that by the end of the fourth year, you've either got an incredible base of knowledge or you got financial freedom, which is wonderful.
We do quite a bit of work with the local unis in the business, like bringing through marketing students and developers, designers. And honestly, I don't think there's enough pushing people to get cross boundaries and fail. Failure is something that people don't want at uni, right? You don't want to fail. You want to just get across the mark. But failure is a great that's what you need, I think, to grow as in your career and as a human.
Yeah, I also think just making it cool.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter about necessarily even pushing people or motivating them with a stick. There's a lot of different motivations, and I think social motivation is certainly something that appeals to younger people. So, it can be a really rock and roll thing to do. I mean, it's glorious. It's painful and brutal and exciting, and it's an incredible adventure. And it's a pretty rock and roll thing to do, to make your own company.
And that's what the real world's like, right? You come out of uni and that's what's going to happen, right? Unless you sort of move into some grad position in a big company. But otherwise, you need to learn that. How does that differ in Northern Europe, do you think, in terms of like a mind state, kids coming out of uni? Because I think there's a lot of work to be done here still.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a relatively new thing over there too. I think within the last decade, even it wasn't sort of necessarily socially acceptable in the last generation to, it wasn't a good thing necessarily to be an entrepreneur. A good thing is to be an engineer at a big engineering firm. And I think people don't realize that them big engineering firms were started by somebody that had a bit of fire in their belly and a sparkle in their eye and just went after it. So now it's changing a whole lot. It's cool to be an entrepreneur, so everybody, even if they do consulting or anything, they take the label.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we just need to. I was talking to somebody last night, actually. I definitely won't say who it was, but I mentioned about this gin company, Prohibition.
Yeah.
And the guy was from the government. He said, yeah, but they had problems. They had challenges. And the first thing I said was, for God's sake, don't worry about that.
Well,
Jeez.
Now.
Being able to find a way to win in the face of adversity is one of the most important things. If there's a startup, an entrepreneur that just keeps on winning, that is an unsafe position.
Yeah, sure.
If they're constantly fending off failure and finding a way to win and go to the next level, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. That's who you should be backing. So definitely focusing on the successes is important. But the successes are not just $100 million sales and all this kind of stuff. It's also succeeding in the face of adversity. Not like, they had problems. No shit, so does every single company on earth.
100%.
Tesla's a great example. Out there in Europe, they're all saying for a while, Tesla has manufacturing problems. They can't produce this car. There are a lot of problems. Yeah, no shit, so does every single car company on earth.
Yeah.
But why do we know about Tesla's problems? Who's seeding that story?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Because dramatology in Swedish, or dramaturgy, the dramatic ebbs and flows, the polarizing story.
Look what happens when they release their quarter profits and they're high. Wow, whoa. It defies everybody's expectations.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do is bet against people like that. That's what we need a bit more of in the culture here, I think.
Sure. And I think that's something that, whatever it is, that sort of tall poppy syndrome or whatever, people are a little bit, scared to stick their neck out and actually, say, look, I'm here. This is what I'm doing.
And that was kind of partially. I didn't get onto that point so much, but tall poppy syndrome or anything like that holds people back. Ultimately, it's up to the entrepreneur. They've got to decide who they're going to listen to, because the minds of people, this is effectively the multiverse. What does that guy think? What does that guy think? Well, they all think a completely different thing. Some are extremely supportive. blindly, naively supportive of what you do, and the others are, some are the polar opposite, and every other thing in between. The question is, who do you work for? Who do you want to listen to? Who do you want to influence your own performance and your own energy? Who are you going to focus your time on? It's very hard to focus on, working for the people that support you, but it's absolutely critical to not waste your time on anything that's like putting a brick in your backpack. You don't want to walk around with a big, heavy backpack full of bricks. You want to run as fast as you possibly can and listen to the people that give you wings.
Yep. And jump around as well. I think I was having a chat with a bloke that runs an agency in Melbourne, but when he's hiring people, he wants to know what their 5-year plan is. He wants to know what's next. Let me help you get there, right? As opposed to thinking that's thinking, oh, you're going to be here for 15 years and blah blah blah. It's like, it's better to have people that have vision and actually want to grow, and you can help them along that journey, right?
And if people have the freedom to do that, if you say, like, one thing I used to say at the start of our company, it was not like a strict 9 to 5. I used to say, come here when you feel compelled to be here. And if you don't feel compelled to be here, go and find a place in the world where you are compelled to be there. And if you have that, it can be taken advantage of. Oh, of course, it's another thing I learned along the process. But if you give people that kind of freedom and have their motivation not be a rule or a restriction or a partner, it's a contract or exclusivity agreement, get rid of all that and have a completely different motivation, like the motivation to achieve something great together, or values that align with people's own values. Then you get a much more effective, much better results, and people feel good about what they're doing. Focus on attracting talent, not forcing talent to stay.
and it's the same thing, trying to build a culture backwards. You can't have something and then all of a sudden just force culture down onto a team. It's having that transparency at the start and sort of leading from the front. This is how we operate. This is how I operate. Yeah. We get into business for the sake of creating your own destiny, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to have a workforce that doesn't share a similar goal.
Sure, absolutely.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
So you're hanging around for the next couple of days, or you're
Yeah, there's something. We're going out to, and we're doing like a wine and cheese
cool. I'll be there. That's going to be incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, the McLaren Vale is beautiful, but the cube's an experience. So
I got to say that I never realized what a beautiful town Adelaide is. Never realized, and I was here last year. I spoke at the Impact Awards last year. But at that time, I was really like a functioning psychotic. I didn't sleep, and I was in the guts of this creative chaos phase, and everything was just brutal. And at that time, every single day, I had no idea where I was. I was just dragged. The next day, I'm in New York or Vegas or Delhi, or it was just like a haze. And I was here, and I just, I don't know, I didn't have the same set of eyes. I missed what a beautiful town it was.
It's interesting
I
sometimes.
lost a section of my life, and now that I'm here with a completely clear head and a much more healthy mindset, wow, what an incredible city you got here. I didn't realize it.
It's funny what perspective does, though. And sometimes, especially with traveling, just who you're with, if you actually see something through a local's eyes, can really change the perspective on a place. So I think it's nice that they're putting on, the dinners and taking people out and showing them, some of the awesome stuff that we have here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Looking forward to the next couple of days, and we'll have to have a chat over a few wines on Saturday.
Yeah, no objections here.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for the chat.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Keep up the awesome work.